Today, Precarious plays
Deus Ex, Human Revolution. Dear Sir, confidential business proposal. Having consulted with my colleagues, and based on the information gathered from the Nigerian Chambers of Commerce and Industry, I have the privilege to request for your assistance to transfer the sum of 47,500,000 credits into your accounts. The above sum resulted from an over-invoiced contract executed, commissioned, and paid for about five years ago by a foreign contractor. This action was, however, intentional, and since then, the fund has been in a suspense account at the Central Bank of Nigeria, Apex Bank. We are now ready to transfer the fund overseas, and that is where you come in. It is important to inform you that, as civil servants, we are forbidden to operate a foreign account. That is why we require your assistance. The total sum will be shared as follows: 70% for us, 25% for you, and 5% for local and international expenses incident to the transfer. The transfer is risk-free on both sides. I am an accountant with the Nigerian National Transhumanism Corporation, NNTC. If you find this proposal acceptable, we shall require the following documents: your banker's name, telephone, account, and fax numbers. Your private telephone and fax numbers for confidentiality and easy communication. Your letter-headed paper stamped and signed. Alternatively, we will furnish you with the text of what to type into your letter-headed paper, along with a breakdown explaining comprehensively what we require of you. The business will take us 30 working days to accomplish. Please reply urgently.
The fact that this is here just makes me happy.
I don't think that's the first one of those that we have encountered.
No, it's not. But why would it be? I mean, if it's a spam situation, most everybody should get one, right?
Gotta go for that shotgun approach, right?
Mm-hmm. You gotta play the law of averages because you know somebody gave them that information. Somebody was like, oh, my personal information regarding my finances and identity? Yeah, buddy. Sure.
You know, I poke fun, but I know that there have been American Congress people who have fallen for crap really close to that, you know?
Yeah.
Like, wasn't there a kerfuffle in the last year and a half or so? Well, what kerfuffle hasn't happened in the last year and a half?
I don't know, man. I'm sure that I don't remember the particulars.
I think that there was a situation where somebody was like, hey, congressperson, I forgot the password to the president. Can I have it?
I was like, oh yeah, sorry, buddy. It's 0000.
The password to the president is president password.
It frightens me how much better security I personally have.
Hold on, I just realized what the password to Air Force One is. The password is Air Force Fun.
That's far too clever. You know it's not.
But the thought of it still makes me lightheaded.
I'm a little, like, I'm interested in cybersecurity a little bit. And it just throws me, like, how careless people are with something that's very simple to do well.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's even an app that has been created to make managing this situation easier called LastPass, where, like, you just need to remember the password to LastPass, and then it stores all of your passwords for all of your other things, which to me sounds like a weak point, but, you know, the fact that it exists is kind of crazy. And, like, a lot of times, like, I've seen now accounts will auto-generate crazy passwords for you. Like, you don't even have to think of one. Like, we will give you a random string of numbers and characters. Please take this. Stay safe. We just want you to be safe. And it's like, no, my password is Bob Ram. Actually, that would be an okay password.
Yeah, the character count's pretty huge.
Yeah, so, there's a free one for y'all. But holy cow. And it's like important people who do this garbage too.
Well, see, I don't even mind revealing what my password system is because it's pretty solid,
Yeah, it's individualized.
Yeah, what I do is just for everything, I just look around at what is currently in the vicinity whenever I'm making a new password, and I just pick like 5 or 6 objects and put those in, and it winds up being fairly memorable because I'm like crafting a little story using whatever crap is lying around.
Yeah.
And it winds up being
a long
like
password.
30 characters long, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like too many characters. It's like, really?
Well, let me delete this, like
the last 4 words of this
nonsense string. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there you go, everybody. That's a perfectly fine way of making a password. Like, because of the way I feel like my user experience is often degraded to account for other people.
Yeah.
Because I always get really cross whenever a system requires me to incorporate uppercase letters and numbers and things.
Yeah.
Because that kind of stuff, from what I understand, there are 2 main ways for someone to get into your business, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's either, they're either getting into your business because you've written your password down somewhere, and they have stolen like that physical copy. They've observed the password, or a computer is doing the work.
And it's just doing combinations.
Right. And the system I just described is pretty resilient on both fronts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because even if some schmuck, or I think that there's a process that I've never looked up, key logging.
Yeah.
Where I think that somebody puts something on your computer remotely, I would imagine, that records what you're pressing. I'm assuming that it is what it says on the tin, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think that the way to avoid that being a problem is to not download suspicious stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm very suspicious of
stuff.
Yeah. Just generally, I'm just a suspicious cat,
Yeah. The one thing that I think is interesting about your method for creating passwords is how well it lines up with how people remember things. Like making a story out of nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
Is how people win memory competitions. It's how people hack their own brains. Like if you're trying to remember like 700 digits in a row, you go through and you make up a story that involves each one of those numbers that relate to them, right? Mm-hmm. And then just by knowing that story, like you make a story, and the story is naturally easy for a brain to remember, crafting a narrative of any kind. And the more ridiculous it is, the better it is. So if you remember the password that you've created because it's made of words that you've woven into a story, even if the whole story isn't in the password, that helps you remember it too. Like I've seen people who do this what I think is a very silly pursuit, but if it makes you happy, you know. But I've seen people who are famous for memorizing things, just using their brains to memorize information and store it and then recite it. And they can just memorize like absolute nothing. And it's the method that they use most commonly is the method of creating a narrative for each of the pieces of information they have to recall. And it's very silly. It gets very silly very quickly because this woman who had won the world championship or something was explaining how she remembered all of her numbers. We ran into this guy with 5 arms who was eating 8 bananas and that sort of thing. And she was like half laughing and she had her eyes half closed and she's like playing back the movie that she made, you know? I mean, they give her a piece of paper with a impossible amount of characters on it, and I go, oh no. And it's all numbers, which makes me go, no, 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 no.
There were 2 handsome ones and 1 dwarf and 4 hobbits and 1 ring.
Yeah.
Wait, how many hobbits were there? Were there 4 hobbits?
Sam, Frodo,
and
Pip and Merry and Pippin. Pip?
4. Yeah, because whenever they get grouped up later, there are 2 involved in the war effort and then 2 on the mountain.
Mm-hmm. So it's really goofy, but I think that it's interesting that you naturally landed on that. I mean, have you ever heard of people... Before you started doing this to your passwords, did you know about this technique, this like funny little memory technique?
No, I don't read techniques.
Yeah.
I think that people that read techniques are poseurs.
I am a poseur. Another fun one that I heard about was getting good at speed reading by slowly training yourself to use your peripheral vision on lines of text to sort of take in more information at once. And I'm not all that interested in speed reading, but it sounded cool. And I tried it and I was like, yeah, no, this makes sense. And then I was like, I'm not doing this.
Bored now.
I'm bored now. It's like, did you know that you could make a motorcycle entirely of toothpicks? And I put 3 toothpicks together. I'm like, okay, I could see this. Not gonna make one. Sounds like a lot of work.
Have you seen one of those videos where someone will take a bunch of matches and bundle them together to make them into stuff, and then if you light that many matches on fire simultaneously, like thousands of matches.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the one where somebody made an old-timey cannon.
Really? I've never seen that one.
And then stuffed it full of matches, and it kind of worked. I mean, it was incredibly self-destructive, but eh.
I saw a volcano. That's way less cool than a cannon.
That's probably pretty similar
It was
functionally.
very cool.